Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to another episode of Critical Conversations live from Denver. It is Friday night. Hey, everybody. As you can see, I am joined by my beautiful wife, Melissa.
Hello.
And we are very, very happy to be with you today. Yes, it is. Hey, critics. Hey, everybody out there. So let's do this. Let's do a show. I asked for, I got a whole bunch of stuff to go over. I'll try to do it all in order because I'm excited and anxious to get everything all to you all at once. Everything Everywhere All at Once, one of my favorite movies of the last year.
Yeah, it was pretty damn good.
Pretty good stuff, huh? Okay, so let's get to it. First off, you have a quote for to get going on our week here and our show.
This is from Ashley Brilliant. Sometimes the most urgent thing you can possibly do is take a complete rest.
What a perfect quote for me today.
That was perfect for me too.
Yeah, seriously. Sometimes the best thing the most urgent thing you can do for yourself is take a complete rest.
Yes, I've been feeling stressed out. I've been kind of doing a lot and I just need to rest.
Yes, I can relate. I crashed today. I had a busy day today, and ended up going and sitting on the couch about an hour and a half, about 2 hours ago, thinking I was going to, just kind of sit there and veg. And then an hour and a half later, Mel's like, it's about 5:30. I think you're going to need to get up and get ready. And I was like, but yeah, rest. Anyway, great quote.
Thank you.
Yeah, sometimes it's funny in Scientology. There's this little mantra they have that Hubbard actually put out in the 50s or 60s or whatever, and he said the wrong thing to do is nothing. The wrong thing to do is nothing, and given the right context, that's absolutely true. But, sometimes the exact right thing to do is nothing, something to keep in mind, actually, because, that's important. As our opening gets going here, I also want to share, before I forget or do anything further, our Benson cam.
Yes.
Okay, so our little bundle of joy, our little fur baby, Benson, this is him, and there he is. And you can see I've got a viewer suggested, one of our fans suggested that when I throw up the Benson cam, we throw up snuggles, not struggles. And I thought,
so cute.
Could I think of a better motto or a better little phrasing for why we throw up Benson Cam in the first place, why we had 7 Cam before? I mean, other than, of course, our sort of hidden desire to make our pet into an internet sensation, because we love sharing the love of our little doggy and our pets with you all.
Yeah.
And Benson really, truly is a source of snuggles, not struggles for us. It was actually quite a fitting suggestion, which is why I grabbed onto it. This is him just sitting in our hallway, chilling. He's looking back and forth between me and Mel. And in answer to your question there, Alex, yes, I would absolutely consider dressing Benson up. Oops, there we go. In little costumes and stuff. Absolutely. In fact, we have done that privately.
Yeah.
We've got a little sweater that he wears. He's got this little tube sweater that is the most adorable thing.
It really is.
And a jacket with a hood. So we should, we'll get some of that to you guys. Okay. We will definitely share that stuff with you guys. So I did a little impromptu survey or question or threw up truly in a little bit of a moment of feeling a little, and a little and a little desperate and a little mad and a little frustrated and a little of everything else that happens to, content creators, YouTube creators, which is, you want more views. You want more people seeing your stuff. You want more people to be helped by and learn about things, which is what this channel is all about. And sometimes it gets a little frustrating trying to grow an audience on YouTube. Because YouTube's algorithm tends to feed sensationalism and salacious stuff and stuff that doesn't really seem to a mature or to an intellectual kind of viewpoint, doesn't seem to serve that side of life as well. And it can be frustrating. I've been doing this for, 8 years, I think now, something like that, right? 2014. And I've grown an audience.
Oh, yeah.
You guys, right? And I sometimes will not appreciate that as much as I should, but I try to acknowledge that on a regular basis. And I think you guys get how warm and fuzzy you make me feel and how much I love my critics out there. And how much, we appreciate you guys tuning into us on a regular basis here. That's not something to take for granted. And yet I was frustrated after 2 years of doing a call-in show, which is called Critical Conversations here, right? That the idea was that there would be conversations. Now, that it hasn't really happened the way that I sort of originally envisioned it. And that's fine. I was just frustrated about, well, what do I need to do? Because I based it sort of around a model of other call-in shows I saw. And yet we're not like those call-in shows. I am not here to get into heated arguments and name calling with people. And I think you guys have seen over the last couple of years that we've been doing this show that that's not what I'm about. And I don't treat people that way because I don't treat them in real life that way. Sometimes on social media, I'll get a little jacked with somebody on Twitter, or, I used to be on Facebook, and you dickhead, kind of thing. And you always feel a lot of, that would ruin my day way more than it would ruin theirs. I'm positive, in responding to people that way, because I actually tweeted something out today about this, which is that, one of the things that is super, super common out there, but is, I think, mislabeled, is hate versus disrespect. There's this thing, he's a hater, he's a this, he's a, all these hate, this hate, they hate that, they hate women, they hate people, they hate all this other stuff, right? And you're like, it's not really hate. I don't even feel that strongly about it, or they don't feel that strongly about me that they hate me, but they sure as hell disrespect, and that in itself is sort of this invisible thing that happens, Mm-hmm. Were you going to say something?
No.
Oh, okay. I just want to make sure I didn't. Yeah. So I think that's an important distinction, because disrespect makes the person receiving it feel like nothing, feel like they are nothing. They should just crawl back into the hole they crawled out of, and it is especially hurtful when it's somebody that you respect, or that you have, imbued with authority or importance for some reason, and then they treat you like garbage, and, or they don't even think about you in what they're doing. They're just, going through their life, doing their thing, and casually being disrespectful. And that can be painful too. That can be hurtful to a person, right? And it's not like we all have to be, little snowflakes or fluttery flowers. I'm just making the point that hate and disrespect are two different things, and they can oftentimes get conflated. So I'm trying to grow this show, trying to grow this channel, and thinking, well, somehow I'm failing at this. Somehow I'm not doing what I want to do, because, as wonderful, and please know, this statement that I'm about to make, which I put in my post about this, is not any kind of diss on any of you. You know I love you guys, right? You guys are the best. But the intention of the show was to have a variety of viewpoints calling in to tell me whatever they wanted to tell me, rather than necessarily having the same set of people call in on a routine basis. That wasn't exactly what I had in mind. And yet here we are, and this is the show that's developed, and okay. But so there's a few things that we're going to change around a little bit in order to make this more in alignment with what you guys told me y'all want in this show and from my channel. And I got a lot of things to say about this, but first off, it's going to be a little new rules action here. So, so this is new rules for our show, and in terms of calling,
not like the Bill Maher new rules. Yeah, this is different.
No, it's not that. In order to provide a more of a structure, a little bit more framework to this, a little bit more organization, it's only going to help, right? Apparently what is wanted, and one of the reasons you guys tune in to watch this show is to hear me, to hear us. Because I'm in no way, going to detract from this lovely, intelligent, wonderful, amazing woman who contributes all kinds of wonderfulness to the show and to my life, and who I have on here for that reason, because she's got important things to say too. And this is more of the critical conversations that this show represents than the call-in aspect of this. And that's sort of a little switcheroo in terms of how I think about what we're doing here, because apparently what you all tune in for and like and want is me doing this, talking, monologuing, giving you guys, my views, my ideas on, my take on, or education on, or commentary on, Scientology, cults, coercive control, recovery from cults and coercive control. And of course, this channel addresses all cults. We focus so much on Scientology because I'm a former Scientologist, and because it's something I can talk, pretty intelligently about, because it's something I know so much about. And so but this is not a Scientology only channel. And I've been pushing that and resisting that idea for years now, right? Because there's a certain point where you kind of have to move on from a single topic. And yet we still are embracive to cults and coercive control, and and how that even touches on, although we hardly talk about it a lot compared to cults, but how that touches on domestic issues and domestic violence, or gangs and trafficking. We've certainly talked about that, and anything and everything related to those subjects. That's my niche, right? And so you see me sometimes stray out of that on this show or on my podcast, and I know I'm going off the reservation, so to speak, when I do that, and I'm not going to get as many views, or I'm not going to get as many people interested in that, but I'm just doing that for me, or for those who are interested in it. So when it comes to the call-in aspect of this show, right, I didn't do all this for nothing. I still want to talk to you guys. But new rules is, right, that we're pushing all of that to the end of the show, as we have already kind of done. We're doing that even more. And there's a call-in queue. Oh, look at this. In fact, we have calls in the queue right now, which is pretty awesome. So what I'm going to say about this is, we'll start picking up calls after I'm done, or we're done with whatever messaging or monologuing we have to do, which is going to be the bulk of the show. And in the call-in, the call-in studio that I use, there is a little pre-screening electronic thing which will turn, it's a speech-to-text thing, that will tell us what it is you're calling about. And if it's not on the topic of the show that week, we're not taking it. Because at first I was kind of, well, let's leave the lines open for everybody to call in and have something to say on whatever's on their mind. Call in and talk to us about whatever's on your mind. that hasn't worked. I'm admitting right here and now that was a bad idea and not necessarily a workable idea, right? Having anybody call in about anything, anytime isn't what you guys want to see out of this show and channel based on the lots of feedback I got on this question. So let's not do that. Let's do something else. And that something else will be, you call in and we can see on the little screen here, right, who's calling in and whether there's an auto screen of some kind that tells us who they are. And what they want to talk about. And if it's not related to what we're talking about in the show, then we just won't take it. And I'm not going to lose a lot of sleep over that because them's the rules, right? And that's more of a more structured way of dealing with calls that hopefully will be more on, sort of on topic. And also, of course, these calls will be kept to a minimum amount of time when we're talking, and pushing them further back will allow for, kind of faster calls, right? Because as I said at the beginning, I'm not the guy who's just going to hang up on people. I don't want to disrespect any of you. I don't want to treat any of you like, you don't matter when you call in. It does matter to me that you call in. It does matter to me what you have to say. So that you and I are in full agreement, let's keep it on the topic of the show for that week. Okay. Yes. And on that note, let's get into a little monologuing here, right? Because we're going to get to those in a minute. And in fact, you can see right now, we're not wearing our headphones. We're not going to put them on until we start taking calls later, right? Save our hair and all of that. So when you see us with the headphones on, that's when to call. Otherwise, you're going to be on hold for a little while, okay? And right now, our call-in queue is full, which is awesome. I only queue it up to 4 calls at a time. So if you're calling in and it's busy, that's why. Totally fine. Just, keep trying later. So what do we have to talk about? Well, I titled this week's episode Ego, Narcissism, and YouTube. And those are kind of broad where what I want to talk about here. I don't know if you guys know this or not, but it really took me by surprise when I got got all these answers in from y'all on what this show and what my channel represents to you. And it was affirming but surprising at the same time. Ego boosting even. I definitely will admit that, right? Because so many of you said, we want to hear you, Chris. The calls are not really that interesting. You are. And there's something I want to tell you guys because this has been my attitude from the very beginning of starting this show that has taken a long time for me to start thinking differently about. And that is when I first started my channel. You might remember I was doing my talking to the camera with a plain white background, black t-shirt, just talking. And then I'd throw some graphics up on the screen and in context to whatever it was I was talking about. These were not, high production value shows, but it was how I modeled the shows that I would do or the videos that I would create. And the reason for that, and I think I said this a few times, once I started podcasting or something, I think I've talked about this, is that my channel and the message of what I've been working on and doing has never really, it was never intended that it be all about me. And I was trying to downplay me at the beginning of this whole thing. For years, it was the message, not the messenger. For the first year or two, I barely said anything about myself. It was videos about how destructive Scientology is, how Scientology is organized and structured, what the abuses are, what the policies are, why it is the way that it is, why we call it a destructive cult. It was focused on that more so than it was about me and my story and my abuses. And it was really only after I got a Q&A show going that I started talking more deeply about my own experiences and myself, if I remember things right. around that time. Yeah, so I've put that out there, right? And so here's the point of where I'm going with that, is that being the original intent, and that always being kind of on my mind. Even when I did start talking about myself, it was really only to answer questions or give information or share experiences or be able to get across to y'all that I understand the situation you're in, because I've been in it, and sort of empathize and that kind of thing. Here's what it was not about: my ego. Right? It wasn't about, me trying to be on a platform or grandstand or tell you how wonderful I am or anything like that, right? I wasn't doing this so that you guys would think I'm this amazing person or somebody that you need to listen to or something. That's my point. That wasn't my intention. And so imagine, a little bit of my having to rethink things a little bit when person after person after person in the feedback is telling me, and this is not just in this recent one, it's been going on for a while, but it's been slow for me to accept it. And that is that y'all are tuning in because of me, right? It was like, God damn, really? It was a little bit of that. And last week I talked a little bit about this, about, how coming out of Scientology and becoming aware of the incredible narcissism that exists in that group, the developed narcissism of that particular cult. A lot of cults will pump you up and teach you that you are amazing, but you're always subservient to the leader. And Scientology kind of plays games with that, right? It's another one of those double binds in Scientology where you're a god, you're a spiritual entity, you're an operating thetan. You're operating as a thetan. You're all that. And yet Hubbard is also glorified. Miscavige is also glorified. And when it comes down to the brass tacks of a real world situation, you are nothing when Hubbard or Miscavige have something to say about it. If it's a choice between you and them, it's going to be them 100% of the time. And you're going to be expected to fall on your sword, take the bullet, go to jail, do whatever's necessary to protect them. That's the reality of Scientology, and that's the reality of most destructive cults, and one of the biggest things wrong with them. But that ego pumping thing is one of the ways, one of the mechanisms, you could say, of how they get you into a place where you will be willing to do something like that, right? How do you get somebody, if you think about it for a minute, how do you get somebody into a suicide bomber frame of mind? Right now, obviously, Scientologists, it's a little bit of a stretch to call Scientologists radicalized to the same degree suicide bombers are. But I can tell you that I would have taken a bullet for Miscavige. I would have died for Hubbard. Absolutely, right? How do you get somebody into a headspace like that? Well, ironically and weirdly enough, you got to convince that person that they're all that in a bag of chips, right? You got to convince them that they're a truck of chips. The importance of who they are, the time that they live in, what they're about to do, right? Whether it's, blowing something up or killing somebody or doing whatever awful thing you want them to do, you got to convince them that they are so important and so necessary to the cause that it would never happen without them. Their sacrifice is that important, is that big of a deal. And I can tell you from my own personal experience that level of martyrdom, that level of thinking was absolutely where I got to as a Scientologist and Sea Org member. Who signs billion-year contracts? Well, people who think that way. So, and that's not the only reason, of course, and we can touch on some of that, but that's one of the things. So, as I was mentioning last week, coming out of that group, hitting the real world, finding out from other people who never met you, don't know anything about you, that you ain't all that. They're not that impressed. They don't really care what you have to say. They have arguments against what you have to say, and in fact will call you out as a stupid idiot when you're being a stupid idiot. That's a very humbling experience. And it's not one necessarily that everybody experiences coming out of a cult, but me being as introverted and introspective as I am, I was paying all kinds of attention to that, because it would feel like a bit of an ego bruise or bashing if somebody was telling me I was wrong. And I was like, what? I'm not wrong. You're wrong. And then after a while you start thinking, well, wait a minute. No, I actually was wrong about that. Right? And then it's like, oh no, I was wrong about that too. And that too. And then, and then you get the gumption up to start really questioning yourself. And where that led me was, oh, not only am I not all that, I'm really just another human being. And I was really kind of, love bombed and an ego boosted beyond, into the stratosphere. And that's just not warranted. That's just not who I really am or what I'm really all about. And so I need to eat a whole lot of humble pie here. I need to eat an awful lot of crow. I've got some people who I owe apologies to, and I got to work on that. And that's a very, humbling experience. And critical thinking only adds to that because you learn, as a good critical thinker, you learn the lesson that I don't know are very important words. And people who are full of themselves don't get to say, I don't know. They don't get to admit that because that's weakness. See, that's humility. That's you're not all that, right? Because suddenly there's something you don't know anything about. And when knowledge and intelligence and perception are the capital that you're dealing with, or the currency that you're engaged in or using, then it is. It can feel very, very wrong to admit that you're wrong. Or that you don't know, right? These can be, oh no, that's impossible. Absolutely not. And this is not just a cult thing. This is just human psychology. So as a critical thinker, you learn that I don't know is very important. And you learn that there's all kinds of things you don't know. And the more I learned, the more it became abundantly clear to me that there was a world of knowledge out there that I was never going to even be able to know because there's so much of it out there. And this is why expertise is appreciated and important, and why we do need authority figures and all of that kind of stuff. So then you eat all this humble pie, and then the thing becomes, well, I don't want to become that ego monster again. Don't want to do that, right? And now that I've shed the narcissism, now that I no longer am suffering from this, version or sort of idea of narcissism, and now that's not there anymore, and all the reasons that it was there are gone. You've kind of debunked them all or let them all go. The last thing you want to do is start pumping yourself up again and believing you're all that in a bag of chips, right? That truck of chips. So I've been wary. That is the exact right word. I have been wary of going back into a place where I start thinking that I'm important because you guys put importance on me, or because, you want to hear what I have to say, or you want my take on things. And it's, there's a little bit of a walk you have to walk there of keeping rein on, or keeping your ego in check. And that's been, sort of where my head has been for a while now is, oh, well, where's this line where I don't go too far, where I don't take it too far? And what I think I said before, and I'll say again, is as long as you realize that other people are important too, you never forget that. You never, ever forget that. And of course you're going to forget that, but you try to keep that in mind, right? You try to always put that front and center, that, yeah, you can be amazing in certain areas or in certain ways, or you can be helpful to people, or you can be useful to people in their lives, but don't make that out to mean that you're more important than them as a human being, or that your opinions or ideas matter more than other people's. And that's the line, I think, that we want to avoid.
There's so many people that do that, especially on the internet. My opinions are more than yours.
Oh, my goodness. And of course, if anything, if you want to bring this back to a cultic model, then you have people who, because of their beliefs, and I've seen this with extremist Scientologists, Christians, Muslims. Oh my God, we see this all the time in Islam, in extreme radicalized Islam, of, my holy book is the only thing that matters. And because I believe in that, and because I've been saved, accepted, am set to be in heaven, I am more important and better and stronger and faster and more intelligent than anybody else.
Yeah, and you have to respect my religion, even if it's hurting something you believe.
Well, exactly, right? And it becomes this weird sort of thing of, because they're bolstered by these ideas and beliefs, they really do think that they are better than you. I am, I as a saved Christian am better than you, right? You're a lowly sinner. You're a horrible person. And this isn't all Christians. Don't misinterpret what I'm saying here. This is, I said, extreme, radicalized. These are people who have gone a little too far with these beliefs. That's basically what I'm describing here, right? So you want to keep that line in the sand kind of firmly in place. And on that, I finally have figured something out that I wanted to share with you guys, because this really ties a lot of things together for me. And I've never said this before. I never put this together before. So I wanted to share it with you and get y'all's thoughts on this. Yeah, exactly, Debbie. Fundamentalism. I'm right. Everyone else is wrong. Exactly. I have talked about tolerance, compassion, kindness. It's literally tattooed on my body. It's so important to me, right? It's chaos. Be kind. Be compassionate toward other people. But I've never been able to, other than a sort of feel-good kind of Mr. Rogers sort of attitude about it, I've never really had any analytical or sort of psychological or sociological reasoning behind why it's actually important to not disrespect other people. And certainly you can not respect, not agree with, even ridicule people's ideas. But you got to keep it separate from the person, right? If you want to maintain a healthy, happy relationship with them, or you care about them as a human being and you don't want them to feel like a complete and utter schmuck, that it's important that you disrespect the belief, not the person, kind of thing. There is not one perfect human being in the world. Every one of us has got stupid, dumbass ideas.
Yeah.
Everyone. Right? And we've all got, opinions and attitudes about things that people are going to find wrong, sometimes even offensive. And you're like, I didn't mean any offense. Oh, no, that's just, and they just blow up at you, right? So there's, that's going to exist, and you're going to have to deal with that no matter who you are, no matter what social circle you're involved in, no matter what group you're part of. Somebody's always going to have something to say about what you have to say. That's the usual, right? Not a problem there. But why choose kindness? Why choose to respect people as people? Why is that important? Well, I'll tell you one big reason that's important, and it has to do with this radicalization pipeline. This thing we see where people will switch from one view or set of beliefs or ideas to the polar opposite set, or that's what it looks like is happening. And you wonder, what the hell happened to that guy? Why did that guy become such a horrible person? Why did that woman go off the rails? Why did they go join ISIS? Why did they go do this, do that, do the other thing? And we tend to do an awful lot. Now, let's be honest now. We tend to do an awful lot of finger pointing and blaming of that person, and only that person, for the choices they've made that have led them from a position or standing where we agreed with them, we like them, we thought they were, whatever. They were an ally, they were, somebody we looked up to in some fashion. And then they start changing, and you go, oh my God, well, what's the hell's behind that? Well, in today's social climate of cancel culture and taking offense at every other word, and being, all of us thinking that our views are the only views and they cannot be any other views, and how dare you think otherwise, right? You leftist, or you rightist, you libtard, or you right-wing wacko. It goes both ways. This cuts evenly both ways. Whether you choose to believe that or not, it's true. There are wackos on both ends
Absolutely.
of any spectrum. And a lot of people, when I bring this up, don't agree with that, which is why I'm going to emphasize this again. There are wackos on both ends, right? On all ends. They're the fringe. If you imagine all the spectrums as a great big circle of spectrums, rather than a line, on the fringes, right? We've got lots of wording for this: the lunatic fringe, the extremists, the fundamentalists. We got lots of labels for this. I think you guys know who and what I'm talking about. They're people who have taken their ego and their belief set so far that nothing could possibly question it. And you know what, guys? It actually doesn't matter what topic or subject I'm talking about.
Yeah.
It doesn't.
And then there's people that are willing to do crazy things in order to say that they're the right one, like that they have the right belief. Like, certain types of protests, or they hurt people, or they they'll riot.
You. Yeah, they easily.
Because you believe differently.
Oh yeah, all the things you see online of people threatening violence against the unbelievers or the disbelievers, or sometimes, if we're really being honest, sometimes the believers are at the receiving end of our ire, right? Or when you get into the atheist world a little bit, right? Again, it's the fringe. It's not representative of the majority.
Right.
Majority of human beings are actually pretty cool people. Even if they do hold weird beliefs. I've met some pretty cool flat earthers, I mean, I got to tell you, I have. I've met people who are in the flat earth world that you'd be fine having a beer with and hanging out with, as long as you don't talk about flat earth, So, so where am I going with all this is that that's where intolerance comes from, is from those fringe areas. And if any of us are capable of falling into or going to that extreme, how does it happen? Well, we talk about ways it happens. We talk about propaganda. We talk about manipulation, coercive control, abusing people into these things, brainwashing them into it. But I'd like to point out here that that's a person or group of people doing something to the person who's being radicalized. It's not just the guy or woman who's being radicalized or falling into an extremist headspace who did all the work to put themselves there. It's a group activity. Sometimes it's a group of two. Sometimes it is a person doing that all on their own in their basement on the internet. But even then, if there's
somebody made those crazy websites.
Exactly. Right? It's a group activity. There's nobody, there are very few people who will sit in solitary and drive themselves to extremism, right? All on their own, all in their head. Right? And those kind of people we tend to lock up pretty quickly because they don't play well with others. So this group activity of radicalizing or extrematizing somebody, you might say, is something we all need to be aware of, because if we're being honest, it's something we all engage in when we engage in tribalism. When we engage in our side versus their side, us versus them, we're pushing back on them. Let's take it down to an individual. We're taking an individual. Now let's take somebody who's already on our side. And I've seen this happen more times in the last few years than I care to think about anymore, right? You take somebody who's already on your side. They're an ally. There's somebody you can agree with. There's somebody who is willing to fight for you. You're willing to fight for them. Or even if it's just social media fighting or whatever, they're on your side. And then they say something or do something that you don't like.
Make a joke.
Exactly. Say something that you find offensive. You find wrong and bad and horrible. And how could they? And you let them know. And you let them know in no uncertain terms. But it's not just a one-on-one. It's when the group starts attacking the person for that idea. Right? They dared to step out of line. And I'm not talking about Nazis, guys.
No.
Okay? Let's take this all in context. They're an ally of yours. Are you allied with Nazis? Of course you aren't. Not if you're watching my channel, you're not. So I'm not talking about somebody going so far off the deep end that everybody just goes, what the hell happened to them? What I'm talking about is somebody who says something that they might be asking questions. They might not understand something. They might be even trying to understand or clarify or get, their background, their experience, their education doesn't account for this new thing or this different experience. And they're trying to understand it. And just by asking questions, they're ridiculed, subjected to, insulted, told, that they're a horrible person, judged very hard, very harshly for their questions or their ideas. And maybe there's just some aspect of what's going on in the group that they just aren't down with. And they still want to be part of this group. They still want to be on this side. But they're like, but this part here I'm not quite down with. And guess what that usually involves? The extreme end of their side. There's some wacko, right? Some fringe lunatic extremist making some radical point, and they go, well, I don't know that that's right. But tribalism is all about group agreement, and people will hear sometimes, they'll hear this radical or this weird or this extreme idea, and they go, well, I guess that's part of what we're doing here, and I need to be an ally, and I need to be somebody who's, part of this and supportive of all of this, and they fall into the group agreement of, we're going to actually take this radical extreme idea and adopt it as a norm. And here's somebody going, I don't know that that's a good idea. How dare you question? How dare you? That is the most offensive, horrible, awful thing I've ever heard. Well, what's that person going to do? I'm going to go, oh, shit, this is part of a tribe. I don't know that I'm, maybe I'm not wanted here. Maybe this isn't my group. Maybe this isn't really where I belong. But they do. But suddenly everybody's turning on them, or a number of people, or enough volume is presented against them, even from a small number of people, that they go, oh, damn. And they start questioning everything that they're part of now. Maybe this isn't, because there's a need to belong. We need to belong to groups. This is that emotional needs thing, right? You got to be part of it. You got to be part of something. And if this group makes it clear to you that even asking questions, even daring to wonder about certain things, even going, well, I don't agree with this part. I agree with 9 out of these 10 points. Oh no, that's not good enough. If you're not fully on board, you're against us. That's that whole bullshit, right? That you're either with us or against us. If you don't line up on every point, you're a scumbag. You're the enemy. You're a bad person. Well, what's somebody going to do when they start being talked to that way?
Switch sides.
That's right. They're going to start talking to people who are going to be more accepting of the fact that they asked a question. And maybe they hook up with the extremists on the other end. It happens. It happens all the damn time. And they start going toward and gravitating toward people who are accepting them. And that's part of this radicalization pipeline. That's one of the ways you can lose people. And then you wonder, what happened to Joe? What do you think happened to Joe? Joe didn't feel welcome here. So he went to somewhere where he did feel welcome, where people accepted him with open arms. I've watched this happen right in front of me, with people from the right to going to the left, and with people on the left going to the right. I've seen both. And I finally put it together. Oh, That's part of what, emotional needs, belonging, community. It's powerful stuff. And it can make a person even lose their religion. I'm sitting in the corner losing my religion,
It's me in the corner.
That's right. There's some messaging here, right? It's like, this is important stuff. So what's the remedy for this? Being kind, being respectful, being tolerant of the fact that everybody on your team isn't necessarily going to think the way you do, and you're going to have to be okay with that.
It's like another Patton Oswalt thing was a few years ago, he did a stand-up, and he basically made the point that sometimes the allies don't sound like allies, and sometimes the enemies sound like allies.
Right.
And you have to be careful of that too. Like, yeah, sometimes people are going to ask you stupid questions, but that doesn't mean they're against you.
Exactly. And I'll tell you, once again, in our society, it's the stand-up comedians who are kind of showing the way with this and highlighting and putting a spotlight on this with a lot of what we're seeing in modern comedy, as is its function. That is 100% correct that they be doing that, right? As they, we've spent years of this political, we all know what I'm talking about when I say we are a divided group of a divided nation, right? The partisanship has been ramped up, and we are, sometimes even at each other's throats. And what is that all about? It's about what I'm sitting here talking about, right? Radicalizing people, turning them violent. That's what that word means, is it's going in a direction of violence to fight for your side or your position or whatever, to the point where I can no longer not only disagree with you, I have to hurt you and even kill you because you're so wrong.
And we do that to people from our own side. Whatever side you're on. Like, like he said, if you don't agree with the exact protocol, you might be vilified and destroyed, and people have lost their careers over stuff they said online. There are people that stuff in Tennessee where they just made drag queens illegal, basically. Those are both examples of cancel culture in a way, and it's just ridiculous.
Exactly. Exactly.
We gotta stop.
So that's where it was all kind of leading today for me, right? Is that there's an actual kind of sociological, psychological reasoning here behind being kind and respectful to people. It's not just a good thing to do because you're being a good human being. It's actually how you keep your allies. It's how you keep your friends, keep people in your social circle and space, and build something. Building on hate, building on violence can be done, but does it ever last?
No.
It never lasts. It never builds anything. It just destroys things. And if your intent in life is to destroy things, and that's your thing, well, we got words for that,
And the more perfect you want your allies to be, the fewer you will have.
Oh, my God. Preach. Right?
I mean, because no one can live up to that. And so you're just going to start excluding more and more people. They're going to go form their own groups of stuff. And then the groups get smaller and smaller, and we're just all at each other's throats.
Exactly. Oh, what a great quote there from Law of Improbability, right?
Yeah.
You can build a throne out of bayonets, but you can't sit on it for very long. All right, so I'm putting the headphones on because we're going to take some calls now as we get into this aspect of our show. And again, now let me see here. Okay, I'm going to skip that one because that's not connected at all. Okay, we're going to skip to this one.
Okay.
All right, so this is Lori calling to ask Melissa some questions.
All right.
So let's put this on. Hello, Lori, you were on.
Hi, Mr. and Mrs. Sheldon from Denver.
Hello.
This is Lori from Longmont. How are you?
Hi. Hey,
good.
Longmont. Local caller.
Yeah.
Welcome to the show.
I'm listening to you guys all the time. Now, I have a question. I did see you, Chris, doing an interview, and I don't remember when the interview was, but I watched it the other day with a British lady, and it was about your history in Scientology. I have yet to hear much about Melissa. So, Melissa, I want to ask you, were you a former Scientologist also? And how did you and Chris meet?
No, I was not a former Scientologist. Actually, luckily for me, my parents decided they didn't really, bring religion into the way they raised me. My dad went to the Church of Seventh Day when he was young and had just a terrible experience, is how I'll put it. And he didn't want to do that to his kids, so he didn't raise us with that. And my mom was pretty laid back about it. My stepmom grew up universal Unitarian, so she didn't exactly have fundamentalist beliefs. So I didn't really have a religious background, and thankfully for that. And Chris and I met at this place in Denver called the Secular Hub for all us heathens that don't have religion to hang out and find community.
Yeah, we find community that way. That's right.
It's true. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. So that's
well, good. We need to hear from you more often, Melissa.
Oh, thank you. Yeah.
I agree. Yes. Yeah, she has valuable input. Aww. And she is, I don't know if you guys know, I mean, this is a very intelligent woman. So, yeah. Well, thank you, Lori, for that call.
Yeah, thank you.
You guys have a great day, and thank you for taking me.
Absolutely. Bye-bye. All right.
Bye.
Did we? Oh, there we go. Okay, good. All right. I am not sure what that even means.
I don't know.
Okay. All right. Let's see what comes in here. Yeah, the other calls are kind of wildly off topic tonight, even from what I posted up on the title of the show. So I think we're going to skip those tonight. Let's go ahead and pick up. Sorry, just what? Yeah. Okay, we're going to pick up Darla here. Hello, Darla. You were on.
Hey.
Hey.
Wait a minute. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
I can hear you, yes. You might want to turn down the background a little bit, though, yeah.
Yeah, I got it. I wasn't expecting you to answer so fast. But anyways, I'm not sure which podcast I was listening to, or it might have been Q&A that you were doing on Sunday. But you had just briefly mentioned the fact that your lovely, beautiful wife, Mel, has a degree as a screenwriter.
Yes, that's right. When I did my breakdown on Revolt in the Stars, I mentioned that, yeah.
Yeah, and I'm just really curious about, I know she doesn't currently work in it, but she has had experience in it, and what her hopes and dreams are about that.
Well, I mean, I do have experience in it. I've done film school, did creative writing degree, which is basically a screenwriting degree. I've written a lot of things. I've actually made a few short films. I do have a YouTube channel and a Vimeo channel, where some of the short films I made a long, long time ago are when I was a beginner. And I do want to make more. Right now, I'm working on writing a creative fiction podcast, and hopefully within the next year or two it'll be out there. But working on that, and maybe someday that'll be turned into something else.
That's right. She has
that's awesome.
Yeah, I'll just say she's got a fantastic idea for a podcast, or a fiction story podcast, and she's been developing it for a long time. And I really, really look forward to it being brought to fruition. It's a one-man band like right now for her, just like my show and stuff. But but she's really putting a lot of work into this, and I think it's gonna bear fruit.
Yeah,
Well, I certainly will put out there to the universe for you, Mel.
Oh, thank you.
And I think it's an excellent idea for a podcast also. And Chris, you can help her get a setup going there
Oh, yeah.
so she can have her own studio for her new podcast.
You bet. That's exactly the plan.
The
That's
whole-
exactly the plan. All right. Well, thank you, Darla.
Yeah.
Okay. Bye-bye, guys.
Bye-bye. All right. Let's call that. And with that, we are going to be ending the call-in phase of our show for this week. So I'm going to take the headphones off because we're wrapping up the show. We simply have gotten to the end of it. I knew I had a bit to say tonight. I knew the calls were going to be, not a lot. I intend on trying to make them, depending on the show and the format and how things are going, maybe the last 15, 20 minutes or so is sort of what I kind of loosely have structured in my head. So no insult intended to those who have been on hold this whole time, but it's just we're going to stay on topic right now, and that's what we're doing with the show, as I said. So on that note, I have some announcements to make for you guys. I have some things to tell you about that I think you're going to be a little excited about. First off, today, Tony Ortega and I recorded the first of an ongoing series of shows that he and I are going to be doing right here on this channel. And the name of that show is going to post on Mondays, unless we sort of rework the scheduling. I made it Mondays because I already post content Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And a lot of the, one of the things I've heard over the years is I post so much, it's hard for people to keep up. Well, this will be a shorter format, 20 to 30 minute show that Tony and I review the last week of articles and stories he's published from our perspective of after Scientology, recovery, coercive control. Like, I get to bring my expertise to this in commenting on these topics, on these things that he has published stories about. And he thought this would be a good collaboration. I agreed completely. We decided on that show, on that title called After Scientology, Straight Up and Vertical. That's what we're calling it. And we recorded our first show today. It will post on Monday at noon Denver time. So you guys can look forward to that. And that'll be a weekly thing. So that'll be fun. And then
Oh, yeah.
we have our critical thinking cards. Never going to give this up.
Never gonna give you up.
Never going to let you down.
All right. This week's bias is the backfire effect. When your core beliefs are challenged, it can cause you to believe even more strongly. We can experience being wrong about some ideas as an attack upon our very selves or our tribal identity.
I think we talked about that a little bit today.
Yeah. This can lead to motivated reasoning, which causes us to reinforce a broader narrative despite discomforting evidence relating to a particular fact.
Okay. Backfire effect, right?
Yeah.
And that backfires, doesn't it? Mm-hmm. Right? That's exactly the thing. Because anyway, yeah, it's just intolerance and all of that is just never, ever, ever the answer. Okay, so this weekend, I have the Sensibly Speaking podcast posting tomorrow, and some of you might remember or know a man named Dodge Landisman. He was the NBC affiliate reporter down in Arizona who got fired because Scientology interfered with his livelihood, as Scientology is wont to do. And I got it to interview him. So that interview is dropping tomorrow. I think that you will find he asks me as many questions as I ask him. And we had a really interesting and fun discussion. So that posts tomorrow. And then Sunday, as usual, there will be a pre-recorded Q&A, not a live one, for your viewing entertainment and edification. So send in those questions to my askchrisshelton@gmail.com email address if you want questions to go up on air on my Q&A show. And speaking of questions, I know that we are wrapping up here. Let me do one thing real fast because we got a super chat from R.R. Smith, and I do not ignore super chats. R.R. asks, didn't call in soon enough, Chris, but at what point would you say a scam becomes a religion? Well, I wouldn't. I wouldn't say that a scam becomes a religion. Now, Scientology, it calls itself a religion, and it could be used as an example here. But this is actually in my mind, from my way of thinking about things, Scientology is so much a scam and was always intended to be nothing but a scam that I question and call into question its religious status, its bona fides. Is it really a religion just because a bunch of people have bought into a bunch of nonsense? I kind of say no, because I think intent matters and I think context matters. But the actual real world answer to your question is the scam becomes a religion as soon as it says it is.
Yeah. It becomes tax exempt.
Well, basically, yeah. Once it puts this 501c3 application in and the IRS gives it a stamp of approval, that's when a scam becomes a religion, certainly in the United States. Now, we have seen in Germany, in the UK, and other countries that they don't fall into that same line of nonsense that America does. We've kind of taken some of that freedom of religion a little too far in terms of allowing outright scams to pose as religions. And I get the reasoning. Better to have a few bad apples there than to have real persecuted, minority religions. I get that. I totally do. And in a way, I can support that way of thinking. But the abuses can be so bad, and the devastation that those abuses cause can be so awful, especially when we start thinking about children, that I kind of think, maybe there's a better way. Maybe there's a way we can recognize and respect religion and religious beliefs without condoning the disgusting levels of abuses that seem to come with extremism of belief. And I don't know another way of doing that other than education right now, until we get some bright bulbs who can figure out some legislation that will curb cultic abuses. And that's what I can say about that. So thanks for the question, RR. Always appreciate that. And always appreciate the super chats. Let's wrap up.
Yeah.
All right, guys. So this was fun. I hope you thought so too. And I will see you guys. We'll see you this weekend, and I'll see you next week for this show.
Good night.
Bye-bye.